What if you could get into a car, sit back, relax, and be transported to your destination without anyone in the driver's seat? That's no longer science fiction. The age of autonomous vehicles is here, and companies like Uber and Tesla are making it a reality. I recently had the rare opportunity to ride in both Uber's and Tesla's robotaxis, vehicles that drive themselves using artificial intelligence and advanced sensors. What followed was a journey that was exciting, a little nerve-wracking, and absolutely eye-opening. In this detailed account, I'll take you through every part of that experience, from my initial expectations and fears to the way these futuristic vehicles actually performed on the road. I'll also compare the two rides, what worked, what didn't, and what surprised me the most. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a curious commuter, or someone who just wants to know if these cars are really safe, this deep dive into the robotaxi world is for you. Self-driving cars have been in development for over a decade, but only recently have they started appearing on real streets, transporting real passengers without a human driver. Robotaxis represent a massive shift in how we think about mobility. No longer do you need a driver's license or even basic driving knowledge. These cars use radar, cameras, artificial intelligence, and machine learning algorithms to make decisions on the road. They interpret traffic signals, avoid pedestrians, change lanes, and even reroute based on real-time traffic data. The goal? To make transportation safer, more accessible, and more efficient. According to the World Health Organization, more than 1.3 million people die in road traffic accidents every year. The vast majority of these are caused by human error, drunk driving, distracted driving, fatigue, or inexperience. Robotaxis could, in theory, eliminate much of that human risk. Beyond safety, robotaxis promise broader accessibility. Imagine an elderly person or someone with a disability being able to commute freely without needing assistance. Or a child being sent to school securely and efficiently in a monitored autonomous shuttle. They could also drastically reduce car ownership in urban centers. Why buy a car, deal with maintenance, parking, and insurance, when you can summon a safe, efficient vehicle at your convenience? But technology always comes with trade-offs. And as I found out, those trade-offs can be felt from the very first ride. Before the ride, I'll admit, I was skeptical. I've read the headlines, accidents involving self-driving cars, questions about liability, videos of Teslas failing to stop at red lights. These stories have made it into mainstream consciousness, and they've shaped public opinion. Many people still don't trust autonomous vehicles. In fact, surveys consistently show that more than 60% of people wouldn't feel safe in a driverless car. That's a big problem for companies like Uber and Tesla, who are pouring billions into this technology. And it's not just safety, there are regulatory challenges too. Every city and country has different rules for where and how autonomous cars can operate. Some require a human safety driver to be present. Others ban them altogether. And there's the philosophical dilemma. If a self-driving car must choose between crashing into one pedestrian or swerving into a group of 5, what decision should it make? How does a machine assign value to life? These ethical debates are no longer theoretical, they're increasingly practical. So when I booked my robotaxi rides, I wasn't expecting perfection. I was expecting a cautious, maybe even clumsy attempt at futuristic transportation. What I got was something very different. The Uber robotaxi experience began just like any normal Uber ride. I opened the app, entered my destination, and was notified that my ride was on the way. But then came the twist. It said, autonomous vehicle assigned. A few minutes later, a sleek electric vehicle pulled up. I looked inside, no driver. I hesitated for a moment before opening the passenger side door. The car welcomed me with a friendly voice and a tablet interface that explained how the ride would work. I was told to buckle up, and then we were off. The ride started slow and careful. It seemed like the vehicle was still learning the road, but after a few blocks, I was surprised at how natural it felt. It stopped at red lights, yielded to pedestrians, and even navigated around a double-parked delivery truck without hesitation. One impressive moment came when we approached a construction zone. The robotaxi identified the cones, recalculated its path, and safely maneuvered around the blocked lane. There was a tense moment too. A pedestrian suddenly stepped off the curb mid-block. The car reacted instantly, swerving gently while still staying within its lane. My heart jumped, but the vehicle handled it smoothly. By the time the ride ended, I was genuinely impressed. It wasn't perfect, but it was safe, intelligent, and, dare I say, comfortable. The next day, I scheduled my Tesla robotaxi ride. Unlike Uber, which uses a combination of lidar, radar, and cameras, Tesla relies almost entirely on computer vision and its full self-driving neural network. It's a bold approach, and one that's been both praised and criticized by the industry. My Tesla Model 3 Robotaxi arrived promptly. I got in and the difference was immediately clear. The cabin felt more minimalist. Everything was controlled through a central touchscreen, including navigation, air conditioning, music, and more. What really stood out was how integrated the car was with my smartphone. I could adjust almost everything with voice commands or app controls. Tesla had turned the car into a digital extension of me, and then it started to move. If Uber felt like being chauffeured, Tesla felt like flying business class. The acceleration was smooth but powerful. The lane changes were confident. And the decision-making? Uncanny. At one point, the Tesla had to make a tricky left turn at an uncontrolled 6-lane intersection. Most human drivers would hesitate. The Tesla paused, processed, and made the turn as soon as it saw a gap. No stuttering, no inching forward nervously. It was robotic, but in the best way possible. While riding in a robotaxi may feel like stepping into the future, the foundations of this technology were laid over half a century ago. The journey of autonomous vehicles is a remarkable tale of ambition, setbacks, and innovation, spanning decades and involving countless breakthroughs in AI, robotics, and automotive design. The early visionaries, 1950s, 1980s. The dream of self-driving cars dates back to the 1950s. General Motors showcased its vision in 1956 with the Firebird 2, a concept vehicle guided by embedded road sensors. Though entirely speculative, it signaled the automotive industry's long-standing fascination with automation. In the 1980s, researchers at Carnegie Mellon University built a prototype called the Navlob, one of the first computer-controlled vehicles to drive autonomously. Around the same time, Mercedes-Benz and Germany's Bundeswehr University developed autonomous vehicles that could stay in their lanes on empty highways. These early projects proved that machine-guided driving was possible, but they were slow, expensive, and far from ready for real-world roads. DARPA Grand Challenges, 2000s. The breakthrough decade. The U.S. Department of Defense accelerated development in the early 2000s through the DARPA Grand Challenge. These competitions offered million-dollar prizes to teams that could build vehicles capable of navigating off-road courses without human input. The first race in 2004 was a failure. No team completed the course. But by 2005, 5 vehicles successfully navigated the terrain. This rapid improvement caught the attention of tech giants and automakers alike. Many of today's leaders in autonomous driving, like engineers at Waymo, Cruise, and Uber, can trace their roots to DARPA. In 2009, Google launched its self-driving car project, which later became Waymo. Their cars began driving thousands of miles on public roads, collecting massive datasets to train deep learning models. Tesla introduced Autopilot in 2014, the first semi-autonomous system available in a consumer vehicle. Though not fully autonomous, it laid the groundwork for its full self-driving FSD system. Meanwhile, companies like Uber, Apple, Cruise, acquired by GM, and Zoox, acquired by Amazon, jumped into the fray, investing billions into lidar systems, high-definition mapping, and machine learning algorithms to make AVs a reality. By the late 2010s, AVs were no longer confined to labs or test tracks. They began operating limited services in cities like Phoenix, San Francisco, and Las Vegas. The 2020s have seen the commercial deployment of robotaxis in selected urban zones. Waymo launched a public robotaxi service in Phoenix. Cruise began offering rides in San Francisco. Tesla continued pushing software updates to inch its cars closer to full autonomy. Uber, having abandoned its initial AV program after a fatal crash in 2018, returned via partnerships, most notably with Motional. These partnerships allow Uber to deploy robotaxis built by companies with stronger tech. Today we're witnessing the convergence of powerful AI, real-time data, 5G connectivity, and electric vehicles, all coming together to make robotaxis not just viable, but increasingly mainstream. As I reflected on my rides with Uber and Tesla robotaxis, I couldn't help but wonder how they stack up against the other major players in the autonomous vehicle industry. Each company has its own philosophy, hardware stack, and rollout strategy. So let's break them down and see who's leading the race, and how they differ. Waymo, originally a Google project, has arguably the most mature and safety-focused approach. Their vehicles use a robust sensor suite that includes lidar, radar, and multiple cameras. More importantly, they operate on a geo-fenced model, meaning Waymo only runs in areas where it has extensively mapped every street, intersection, and variable. The result? Waymo's rides are considered the safest and most predictable. Their Phoenix service has logged over 1 million miles with minimal incidents. But this caution comes at a cost. Waymo is slower to expand, and needs extensive infrastructure before launching in new cities. Cruise, owned by General Motors, takes a more aggressive approach. Their focus is on dense urban areas like San Francisco. Unlike Waymo's suburban comfort zone, Cruise thrives in tight spaces, complex intersections, and heavy traffic. Cruise also uses lidar and advanced mapping, but its key innovation lies in machine learning algorithms trained specifically on unpredictable urban behavior. Pedestrians jaywalking, unplanned construction, and erratic human drivers. However, Cruise has faced criticism for sudden braking and confusion in dynamic traffic scenarios, leading to some stalled vehicles blocking roads. Tesla takes the most radical approach: no lidar, no detailed maps, and no geofencing. Tesla bets entirely on cameras and its massive global fleet feeding real-time driving data back to its AI system. Tesla's full self-driving, FSD, is integrated into personal vehicles rather than a dedicated taxi service. That makes it uniquely positioned. Millions of cars could be upgraded overnight via a software update. But critics argue Tesla's vision-only approach is risky. Without lidar and high-definition maps, it must rely entirely on AI interpretation, which can be error-prone. Tesla's rollout has also faced regulatory hurdles and public backlash, especially after crashes involving FSD. Uber once had its own self-driving division, but after a fatal crash in 2018, it sold that division and pivoted to partnerships. Today, Uber works with companies like Motional and Aurora to integrate AVs into its app. The benefit? Uber can scale robotaxi services without developing the complex AV tech itself, but it also means Uber depends on the success of its partners. In my ride with Uber's Motional-powered vehicle, it was evident they're focused on comfort and safety, perhaps more so than innovation. Their strategy is practical: let others perfect the tech while Uber focuses on integration. Even as the tech improves, one uncomfortable question remains: who's responsible when things go wrong? What happens when a robotaxi must choose between hitting a child who darts into the road or swerving into oncoming traffic? This philosophical question, known as the trolley problem, is no longer just academic. Manufacturers must hard-code decision logic into their vehicles. But which life does the algorithm prioritize? Does it favor passengers or pedestrians, young over old, one over many? Most companies like Waymo avoid this by prioritizing caution, slowing down early and avoiding situations where decisions like this must be made. But no system is perfect. If a robotaxi causes an accident, who's at fault? The passenger, the company, the software engineer who wrote the code? Laws are evolving, but most jurisdictions are still unclear. In many US states, liability still falls to the human, even if they weren't controlling the car. In others, companies are beginning to shoulder that burden. This legal gray area makes widespread AV deployment tricky. Until lawmakers catch up, robotaxi expansion may remain limited to test cities with AV-friendly regulations. Autonomous vehicles don't just change how we move, they change who moves us. In the US alone, over 4 million people work as drivers: taxi drivers, truckers, delivery workers. Globally, that number is in the tens of millions. If robotaxis become mainstream, millions could lose their livelihoods. The short-term economic disruption could be severe. Some argue that AVs will create new jobs in AV maintenance, fleet management, remote monitoring, but will these new roles match the scale of job losses? Unlikely. On the flip side, robotaxis could open mobility for millions. Elderly people, disabled individuals, and those without licenses could gain newfound independence. Families might give up car ownership altogether. Cities could reduce traffic, emissions, and parking needs. Roads could be redesigned for pedestrians and cyclists, with AVs using smart lanes. There's also the promise of lower transportation costs. Robotaxis don't need brakes, salaries, or health benefits, so rides could become cheaper over time. Society must weigh these benefits against the cost of disruption. Equity, access, and retraining programs will be essential as we transition. For robotaxis to truly thrive, our cities must change. Urban centers may need to create AV-only lanes, like bus lanes today. Pickup and drop-off zones must be standardized, with clear signage and geofencing. Curb space could be dynamically managed via apps, where robotaxis request temporary permissions to stop. Sensors could be embedded in roads for AV coordination. Smart intersections using edge computing could allow real-time communication between traffic signals and AVs. Cities would need robust 5G networks to support millisecond-level decisions. AVs would also need central command hubs for monitoring, fleet coordination, and emergency override. Most robotaxis are electric. That means cities will need more charging stations, cleaner power grids, and sustainable disposal systems for batteries. AVs will produce data on an unprecedented scale. Cities must invest in cybersecurity and data privacy frameworks to protect citizens. Different countries are progressing at different speeds. Here's a quick look at the global AV landscape. United States, leading in commercial deployment, especially in states like Arizona, California, and Texas. China, heavily investing in AVs with companies like Baidu and AutoX. Government-backed trials in Beijing and Shanghai. Europe, cautious but focused on regulation and safety. Pilot projects in Germany, Sweden, and the Netherlands. India, facing infrastructure challenges but growing interest in autonomous shuttles for specific zones. AVs may not roll out equally worldwide. Local laws, road conditions, and consumer behavior all shape deployment. After riding in both Uber and Tesla robotaxis, I came away more optimistic, but also more aware of the challenges. The rides were smoother than expected. The tech felt confident, even intelligent. But the road ahead is still long. Laws must evolve. Cities must adapt. Society must prepare for a world where drivers are no longer behind the wheel. If you asked me 5 years ago whether I'd trust a car to drive itself, I would have laughed. Today, I've seen the future. And it's not perfect, but it's coming fast. So, would you ride in a robotaxi? Let me know in the comments. And if you're curious about more tech stories like this, hit that subscribe button. Because ready or not, the driverless revolution has already begun.